Hey guys! Welcome back to She's Diabetic. Perhaps you can hear in my voice it's a little bit lower, a little bit croaky, and that is because I am sick. I've got a cold. It seems like everybody in London has a cold right now. So wherever you are in the world, I genuinely hope this is not the case for you, but if it is, today I'm going to be talking about 5 tips to deal with being type 1 diabetic and having a cold. Now, I'm not a healthcare professional, so these are just personal things that I do or things that I've also agreed with my healthcare professional about in terms of just ways to make the combination of being sick and being a type 1 diabetic work a little bit more easily together, because sickness does present an issue. So when you're sick, your body is under stress and it's under a bit of attack. And because of this stress, your body releases hormones to fight off the attack or disease that your body's dealing with. Now, this is great. This is exactly what the human body should do. However, the side effect of this tends to be, and this isn't a rule, but it tends to be the case, that these hormones raise your blood sugar. So this obviously creates a problem for us type 1 diabetics, because we're trying to keep our sugars in line, and then these hormones are wreaking havoc on the whole scenario. First thing I do when I'm sick is I check my blood sugar more often. Now, I'm very, very lucky enough to be on the Dexcom G6 system, and therefore I can glance and I'm not finger pricking all the time. However, if you're not on a CGM, and what I've done when I've not been on a CGM in the past is just finger stick like crazy. When I'm sick, I find that my cues are a bit off. I may be feeling a bit tired, maybe feeling a bit dehydrated, and therefore sometimes my in-touchness with my sugars is not exactly pristine. Therefore, I really like to keep checking my blood sugar. Also because your blood sugar probably is doing strange things that you're not used to because of all these hormones, like I said. So it's worthwhile to just keep checking in to see where you're at and to see if you need to intervene with less or more insulin. Number 2, and I think this is a really, really great one to have in your arsenal, is to work with your healthcare provider to create a sick day plan. Now, for me personally, on sick days, I need pretty much significantly more insulin. Now again, this is something very personal to me and something that I've worked out with my healthcare provider. So I've altered carb ratios accordingly and set up some ideas for temp basal rates that I can increase to on my insulin pump. I think when you work with your healthcare provider and you get some sort of framework in line, it's very empowering and makes you feel like you have a plan when you're feeling sick and you don't sort of feel like off in the weeds, you don't feel well. The last thing you want to do is sort of write down your blood sugars and study the ratios and alter accordingly. I mean, that would be a great thing to do, but I just sort of don't think it's realistic. It's not the first thing I want to do. The first thing I want to do when I'm sick is A, get better, B, rest, and C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, rest. You just don't feel like doing anything when you're sick, do you? So, yeah. I think if you have a plan that's set up ahead of time, you can put that into practice and feel a bit more in control of the scenario as much as possible. My number 3 is to keep eating and drinking as normally as possible. Now, I know this is a toughie because for some people, when they're sick, their appetite goes out the window, and for others, when they're sick, appetite goes through the roof. I tend to fall on both sides of those camps. Sometimes I'm really hungry, other times I'm like, oh, I just can't face food. But I think it is especially important to keep on a normal level as much as possible. If you just stop eating, if you just stop drinking, you're going to get dehydrated, and your body is going to go into even more of like a panic state because it's not getting the nutrients it needs. So when I'm sick, even though maybe I'm not feeling like it, I will try to have some soups, some stews, some really nutrient-dense foods that are full of veg and sort of easy for me to eat. And if I'm really, really prepared, I'll have some of this in the freezer that I can just grab, defrost, warm up, and go. That's the ideal. I know it's not really like realistic for everyone that, oh, you have all these meals in the freezer ready to go, but that is a great sort of side tip if you're that way inclined. And another thing is just to keep hydrated, especially when you're sick, especially if you have certain aspects of sickness, which I'm sure I don't need to go into. You can be dehydrated. And this dehydration can often aggravate the blood sugar scenario because dehydration makes everything more erratic on the blood sugar level, or at least it tends to for me. My number 4, and I learned this personally the hard way, is to check for ketones. Even if your blood sugar is not running insanely high, I think it's very important to check for ketones. Now, a little bit of a story time. About 4 years ago, I had a horrible stomach ache. I didn't know what was going on. I just was doubled over in pain. I was checking my blood sugars per usual. They were all fine, so I didn't even think to check for ketones because I thought my blood sugar's fine. Eventually, this pain got so bad I ended up in the hospital. They checked my blood sugar and I actually had ketones. It's still a bit of a mystery as to why that happened. Of course, they monitored this and they came down, but I had the presence of ketones whilst having a normal blood sugar. The doctor wasn't overly concerned. He said it could be because I was eating particularly high protein at that time in my life, that's why that had happened. But I didn't have any ketones after the sickness went away, which was very interesting to me. So I really encourage you to have a ketone testing kit on hand, of course, at all times, and to utilize that when you're not feeling well. Again, it's just another precaution you can take that is just an excellent measure to take just in case something goes wrong, and so you know what's going on in your body. And my number 5 tip is to keep a close eye on medications you might be taking and what their side effects might be. A lot of cold medications and some fast-acting painkillers contain caffeine. Caffeine has been known to raise blood sugar. It certainly does in my personal case. And another little story time for me. Right now, I have the tail end of a cold, and at this tail end of this cold, I have this horrendous cough. Now, everyone is coughing in London at the moment, so I don't know who gave it to me, but I'm not impressed. But yeah, so I have this cough. It gets particularly bad at night, and it was stopping me from sleeping. So I went to the doctor, and I was like, please, tell me, what should I be doing? I've tried all the cough syrups, cough drops. I can't sleep. I'm coughing. It's like a dry cough sometimes. It's just horrendous. So he gave me an inhaler. And he said, you're not asthmatic, but this is going to help your lungs open up and get more air, and thus you can breathe more easily and get some sleep. Now, I found this very interesting. I've never been put on an inhaler before, but I was like, okay, let's go for it. Inhaler has been great for me. However, massive side effect of this inhaler has been shakiness and heart racing. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that sounds a lot like low blood sugar to me and how low blood sugar shows up in my body. So when this started happening, I was like, what is going on? Oh my gosh. First thing, I thought my blood sugar was low. It was not. So I was like, well, I better finger stick to test. Maybe my Dexcom's off. It was not. So then I read the instructions. Obviously, I didn't take my own advice of reading the instructions beforehand or the side effects beforehand. And sure enough, shakiness and heart palpitations are 2 of the biggies. So a simple little thing like an inhaler that I thought was relatively harmless. And this is a non-steroidal inhaler, so truly I thought it was like, no big deal. It has had a massive effect on my body, obviously. So now that I know this, I can sort of anticipate it and keep a close eye on my blood sugar still, but know that the shakiness, the heart palpitations may be related to the inhaler and not so much my having a low blood sugar, which is very interesting. I thought, actually, that's a totally new one on me, and I was like, wow, who knew? So there we have it. Those are my 5 tips for keeping things as in line as possible whilst battling a cold, flu, or virus of some variety. I'm about to cough a lot because I've really tried to keep myself together for this video, so I'm gonna go now. I really thank you guys for watching, and I really hope that you don't need any of these tips, but you probably do if you're watching this video, and if you do, I'm so sorry you're sick, and you're gonna get through this, and just have kindness with yourself. It will pass, things will go back to normal, and yeah. As always, I wish you guys a happy, healthy, wonderful day wherever you are in this world. I wish you great blood sugars, but most of all, I wish you a happy, healthy mind with it all. Thanks, guys. See you next time, and get well soon.